You ever seen a man walk into a federal courtroom with a mop in one hand and justice in the other? Because that's exactly what happened the day Walter Gibson, 65 years old, skin dark as mahogany and hands calloused from decades of honest work, decided he'd had enough of being invisible, enough of watching rich folks toss around words like fairness and law, while the people who actually kept those hallowed halls running just swept up the mess. Yeah, that happened, and what went down next, nobody in that marble fortress could have seen coming. Marcus Reed, 42, blue-eyed, famous hell. You'd seen his face on magazines at the grocery store, sat alone at the defendant's table in a case the New York press was already calling the trial of the decade. The man who'd built quantum core technologies was staring down fraud charges with $16 billion and his entire legacy hanging by a thread. But the real twist? His whole defense team, those high-priced sharks from Preston Holloway and Schmidt, just disappeared. No warning, no excuse, not even a call. The DA was grinning, the judge ready to bury him, and every seat in that gallery was packed with folks waiting to watch a billionaire crash and burn. That's when Walter, mop and all, stepped right into history. "I will defend him," he said, voice as steady as a church bell, hands trembling only a little. The courtroom froze like someone hit pause on a movie. Walter, still in his faded blue janitor's shirt, maintenance stitched over his heart, walked straight up the aisle, ignoring the snickers, the sideways glances, and the old money perfume that always hangs in the air when power's about to get ugly. "Your Honor," he announced, "I'd like to represent Mr. Reed." You should have seen the face prosecutor's lip curling, judge peering over her glasses, security half ready to haul him back to the basement. But Walter produced his bar card, worn from years in his wallet, and told his story. "I was a partner at Johnson, Williams, and Brown before circumstances changed. 28 years cleaning floors, never missing his continuing education, just in case the world ever needed reminding that justice didn't always wear a $1,000 suit." Marcus, shell-shocked and desperate, glanced up at the man he'd barely noticed sweeping the halls, and for a split second, something shifted. "Yes, Your Honor, I'll take Mr. Gibson as my attorney." The judge gave Walter 15 minutes to confer with his client, probably thinking she was just granting the old man his dignity before sending him back to the supply closet. Walter leaned in close to Marcus, voice low. "Your lawyers didn't just abandon you. This feels orchestrated." Marcus tried to hide his surprise. "What makes you say that?" Walter nodded toward the benches, eyes sharp. "I've been cleaning these rooms for 20 years, son. I know when something smells rotten." When court resumed, the DA tried to have Walter's credentials thrown out, tried to paint him as a charity case. But Walter stood his ground, never raising his voice, quoting chapter and verse of the law with the calm of a man who'd had to know twice as much just to be considered half as good. Judge finally relented, and for the first time that day, Marcus looked at Walter not like a janitor, but like a man he might just trust with his life. That night, Walter visited Marcus's estate, passing layers of security that didn't know what to make of a janitor in a Corolla at the gates of a tech mogul's mansion. Marcus offered coffee, apologized out of habit for the hassle, but Walter waved it off. "I'm still on the clock." As they poured through boxes of discovery, Walter caught errors, missing files, redacted evidence, discovery that should have been objected to and wasn't. "Who's touched these?" he asked. Marcus said only his lawyers and a handful of executives. Walter's face hardened. "Somebody inside is trying to bury you." And then Walter told his own story, a partner track cut short when he took on a discrimination case against Atlantic Energy. Evidence vanished, his name smeared, 6 years disbarred before he could prove his innocence. Nobody willing to touch him after. "I took this janitor job because nobody else would have me, but I never stopped believing in the law." Late that night, a black SUV parked outside Marcus's house, just like the one that had sat outside Walter's own building back when he was still fighting Atlantic. "You ever notice how trouble always comes in black SUVs?" he said, half a joke, half a warning. Next day in court, prosecutor called their star witness, a tech exec named Harrington, who claimed Marcus had stolen his ideas at a Geneva conference. Walter, fumbling with the court's digital display, drawing laughter from the gallery and icy glares from the bench, abandoned the tech and did it the old-fashioned way. "What day was this summit?" he asked. June 12th. Walter handed over hotel receipts and passport stamps. Marcus was in Tokyo that week with proof. The jury perked up. One by one, Walter dismantled Harrington's claims until the man admitted he'd just heard it from reliable sources. The DA fumed, the judge scolded, but the jury had seen a little crack in the perfect case. During the lunch break, two men in cheap suits cornered Walter outside. "You're making a mistake, old man," one said, trying for menace. "Be ashamed if your apartment caught fire." Walter smiled, not blinking. "You know what I mean? You want me scared? You'll have to do better than that." He came home that night to find his apartment ransacked, legal notes scattered, nothing stolen. Just a message, "Back off." But Walter, stubborn as an old tree, only dug in deeper. He called his mentor, James Washington, once a civil rights legend, now 90 and still sharp as broken glass. James listened, nodded, then handed Walter an old file. "There's a consortium, son. They bury innovation that threatens the old money. They buried you. They'll bury Reed if you let them." Walter started to believe what had always sounded like conspiracy was just business as usual at the top. With help from Amara, a former paralegal turned forensics wizard, they tracked down how Marcus's technology actually worked. He'd a quantum processor that could disrupt trillion-dollar energy and defense industries. "That's why they're coming for you," Amara said. "This isn't about patents. It's about power." Meanwhile, Marcus's loyal assistant Victoria started acting nervous, and when pressed, admitted Thomas Reed, Marcus's own brother, was working with the opposition, blackmailing Victoria to feed inside info and plant false evidence. Marcus, betrayed and reeling, realized just how deep the rot went. In court, as Walter connected the dots, exposing lies and following money trails, the attacks escalated. His apartment torched, Maya's estranged daughter fired from her job after her boss got a call from concerned parties. Amara's office broken into, computers hacked, but the evidence was saved by a backup Walter never even knew she kept. "Sometimes paranoia just means you've survived this long," she said with a crooked grin. When the judge began throwing out key evidence, Walter had Amara dig into her background conflicts everywhere, corporate ties, and a husband on the take. He confronted her. "Recuse yourself, or I go public." She stepped down. The case moved to a new judge, one Walter knew from law school, a woman who'd clawed her way up like he had. But the hits kept coming. Thomas, desperate to save himself, offered up a flash drive with every emails, videos, bank transfers. The web of power and sabotage finally laid bare, even as armed men tried to storm the courtroom, even as Walter and Marcus dodged actual bullets. And through it all, Walter's health frayed. High blood pressure, exhaustion, hospital visits he couldn't afford to take. But he pressed on, driven by something bigger than himself. He taught Marcus the reality of being black in America, the weight of always being the suspect, the outsider. "It's not about rage," Walter explained. "It's about being seen as less every single day in ways that wear you down but never quite break you." Final week, as the new judge took the bench, Walter stood up and laid out the conspiracy. Tech giants, energy CEOs, corrupted officials, all plotted to bury a technology that could free the world from fossil fuels. The evidence was so damning, even the infamous William Chambers brought in as the last defense for the energy company spin it. In the end, Marcus was exonerated, the charges dropped. Executives indicted, judges disgraced, the attorney general forced to resign. The story made headlines nationwide, and Walter's old disbarment was overturned with a formal apology, proof that the good fight sometimes wins, even if it takes decades. Marcus offered Walter a job, millions, power, the works. Walter smiled, shaking his head. "I didn't fight this hard to sell out. I'm reopening my practice, civil rights, discrimination, the kind of cases nobody else takes unless there's a camera around." Marcus funded a legal justice fund in Walter's name, and Maya came aboard. Their broken relationship healed through shared struggle. On the anniversary of the case, Walter received a letter from the judge who'd once treated him like dirt, their own apology and a promise to push for judicial reform. That day, Walter welcomed his first new client, a janitor from a downtown skyscraper with a story to tell, nervous and hopeful. Everyone deserves justice, Walter said, no matter what's on their name badge. And that's how a janitor with nothing left to lose took on America's darkest conspiracy, and one not with money or connections, but with grit, brains, and a heart too stubborn to give up. You know what I mean? Sometimes the real heroes are the ones sweeping the floors while everybody else is trying to keep them out of the room. So what about you? If you were in Walter's shoes, would you take the big money job or fight for those who need it most? Comment your answer, share this story with someone who needs to believe the system can change, and hit subscribe if you want more tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Because justice, like courage, comes from the most unexpected places. And sometimes it walks right in mop and hand ready to change the world.